What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality, where we help you, yes, you, become the most devilishly gifted human that you know you are, and that you knew you always could be. Now, where was I, you ask? Well, I had a couple of final exams to knock out, a couple puppies to punch around, but now I'm back. I'm back, honey, and that's all that matters. You don't need to know where I've been or who I've been talking to. Congratulations, you decided to write a book. Well, have you decided? I, just like you, am on my own journey to constructing my first series of novels and will give you some introspection on what trials, emotions, and barriers I have faced thus far, as well as the steps that I've taken to get well within 50% completion of my first draft. It starts with an idea, an intangible and inanimate thing brimming with potential. But an idea, as you know, is simply that, just an idea and nothing more unless that potential is lit aflame and it's acted upon. Personally, I struggled with acting on that idea, just as you may. Questions I ask myself: am I capable of this? Am I disciplined enough? You have to face and surmount your own psyche to reach your ultimate dreams and goals and achieve the inflection point, or reach the inflection point of finally putting that pen to paper, getting that resolve to write your first word. Know that to think is to create, and that the confidence in your own capacity and ability to persevere is the first step in writing your novel. Now, whatever idea you choose, ensure that it's something you can remain passionate and disciplined about, as you'll encounter various moments throughout the writing process in which you want to stop, tethered by the slothing hands of procrastination, just as we are in our everyday life, with so much distraction stifling us. For me, that idea was the concept of an arcanist, mages who wield empowerments attuned to them and unique, constructed a world where everyone remained loyal to their own values and system of justice no matter what, and to help the world see the gray between the black and white through a series of conflicts and clashing of morals. On the surface, questions I wanted to answer were: what is right? What is wrong? What is justice? And who decides what those things are? And my primary goal was to be able to try to speak to that through my own form of writing. For me, that took the form of creating people, men who could bend others to their knee with just a whisper of their voice, who could turn the arcs of rainbows into mile-wide sights capable of splitting the sky and cities into two pieces, into half. People who could paralyze you with the drop of their own blood, giving that it's not a match to their own. Phoenixes and wolves who know everything of the present but nothing of their past and future. Now, how did I form these ideas and concepts? Others may prefer other methods, but for me personally, I sculpted a rough outline, and I started primarily with sort of laying out my setting. I started with my setting, though you could start anywhere, of course, throughout this process. You can start with the characters if you want, it's up to you. I just found it more sort of laying the groundwork with the setting, sort of gave me some leeway for laying out a pathway, right? You have to decide where you want your ideas to come alive. This place will be the medium in which your characters endure great suffering or pleasure, depending on how they perceive or interact with their society. Example time. Now keep in mind, this is not from my book. This is just me goofing off. The burbling kitchen was bogged with sweat, the aroma of ramen wafting the smoke cedar cabin. A lone bed where the ogre lie awake. The wooden stirring must have been his hideous wife, with each ping his face scrunched up tighter. She came bearing a bowl of mud tin soup, which he scoffed at. "Give it here," the ogre grumbled. He clamped his eyes shut and put his lips to the bowl. Then he sipped. His eyes shot open, spurts of salt and watts of sugar, and that taste of sludge sliming down the back of his throat, bitter. Once more he shut his eyes and set the bowl aside, whispering, "Honey, I want a divorce." Try asking some of these questions to yourself. What's important about this type of environment? Why do these types of people live here? Why may conflict arise? What gives rise to it? What are the powers that govern it, if there are any at all? Make sure your setting is representative of the story you want to tell, and don't be afraid to venture too far outside your comfort zone. I, for one, took a more galactic and broad approach when drawing up my setting, splitting the nations of what I donned as the Great Beyond into the north, south, east, and west quadrants of the universe, but concentrating the story specifically in the east quadrant, where my main character lives. More than conflict, your setting acts as a place for your character's emotions to bloom into fruition, and also is integral in setting the tone for your reader. Don't simply just gloss over this step, as it can be as tenacious or meticulous as you make it out to be. Next, we'll be talking about characters. You'll want to think about the name of your characters, who they are, where they come from, unique tokens about their personality, and how they work to make the well-oiled machine that is your plot push forward. Now, this was the fun part for me. You could draw from your own personal life or just imagination, free-flowing ideas to sculpt a personality befitting the prefecture of the character that you want to create. Think back to maybe a limpy-legged uncle who always arrives to the cookout early enough to get a plate but never stays long enough to clean up. Or maybe a grandpa who talks and chews a little bit too much tobacco in his mouth and you can't really understand what he's saying. Or maybe Auntie Gretchen, whose boil you can't tear your eyes away from. In other words, make sure you give them a distinguishing characteristic in pivotal moments in which their development continuously is evolving in a dynamic-like nature. For example, a person who believes killing is wrong inherently is fraught with different opinions. Say if they are forced to protect their little sister from a man holding her at gunpoint by stabbing the culprit dead. Dynamic characters keep your reader engaged and prevent the characters themselves from becoming stagnant and stale and unbelievably unbelievable. Plot. Where are you going with your story? Now, you don't necessarily have to have a full idea yet. In fact, many people don't when they're first starting out. Even when they're writing sometimes. I started with a piece of paper and constructed what I called an act system. Dividing segments of my story up into acts seemed to help kind of compartmentalize and organize the information and elements of my story a little bit better to help me map out exactly where I wanted to go. Now, in each act, I would have a couple of goals in mind. What will this character lose or gain in this act? How will this emotionally affect them? There must be a certain act or event that progresses the plot forward. How will I achieve this? What will be the pivotal point in the act, the aha moment, that puts the readers on their heels? Now, I myself didn't even start initially by asking these questions. In fact, a great deal of the first quarter of my writing was just me putting the pen to paper and seeing where the story led me. After briefly constructing a rough outline of where I wanted the characters progress in that certain chapter or part of the story. All in all, just have a general idea of what goals and sweet notes you want to hit in your story, and remember that if for some reason they don't meet your standard of perfection, then you can always return in the editing phase to fix it up, Buttercup. The important thing is to keep moving forward, remain disciplined in your writing schedule, and practice consistency. In the name of not being a hypocrite, I now pledge to write at least 3 pages a day starting tomorrow. Well, always tomorrow. Now that brings us to our final segment, consistency. This part's quite sweet, short, and simple. You have to remain loyal to yourself, have confidence in yourself, and work strenuously with great discipline to turn this sheet of dough into a delicious cherry pie. Set goals for yourself, daily goals. Maybe start a writing diary. Get up early and jot down a few pages, then see how you progress throughout the day. But I repeat, don't overdo it. You don't want to get to the point where you're so burnt out that every free-flowing idea, even your passion and desire for writing, becomes a clot in the gutter and you begin to resent why you even started writing in the first place. Remember that this is your story, and you have to hold yourself accountable for completing it. I myself, of course, would say that if you have a story to tell, then you have an obligation to tell it. And telling myself that keeps me trudging forward, even when everything else is screaming for me to stop. With that, I hope you found some part of this video helpful. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And be sure to tell me what part of beginning the book writing process was the most daunting to you. I'll leave a link of all my socials in the description. And with that, remember, if ever you're lost in the forestry of words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world. And there, you allow your mind to run free.